we're going to switch gears a little bit and take a look at how drugs affect the communication of our bodies. First, we're going to take a look at 5 neurotransmitters. So we are going to jump back in on the lecture, starting with 5 neurotransmitters.
4 of them create excitatory postsynaptic potentials. 1 of them creates an inhibitory postsynaptic potential. There's a great little chart in your book. It tells what some of these do. Acetylcholine, dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin, and GABA. I think you guys have seen this enough, so we're going to go past this. This you already have, so you don't have to write it back down. But just to recap, neurotransmitters move to the synapse. They're released into the synapse. They bind to the receptor site, and then reuptake happens. We're going to use this when we take a look at the 2 different types of drug effects. We have 2 different types of drug effects. First is agonistic. Agonist increases the likelihood of a postsynaptic potential. It doesn't matter if it's excitatory or inhibitory. As long as a postsynaptic potential is going to occur, we consider it an agonist. How that happens, I'll tell you next. After we talk about antagonist, antagonist decreases the likelihood of a postsynaptic potential. Agonist increases, antagonist decreases. How this happens? Left-hand side, we're going to talk about the agonistic effects. There are 2 different types of agonistic effects. Right-hand side, we have the antagonistic. So agonistic, is it increasing or decreasing the likelihood of a postsynaptic potential? Increasing. So the first way that we can increase the likelihood of a postsynaptic potential. A drug can substitute for the neurotransmitter, attaching to the receptor, opening the ion channels. This is one of the ways that an agonist does what it does. So this is one of the roles of an agonist. Okay, so here we go. Here's our neurotransmitter. Neurotransmitter comes and sits in our little receptor site. If it fits, the ion channel opens. I know, this is great art. The ion channel opens, ions come in, right? So that's nothing new. What's going to happen here, we're going to have a drug that comes in, and it's close to our neurotransmitter. It's not exactly the same though, right? You see the difference in like the little fangs there? So this little this drug is going to come in, it's going to sit in our receptor site. It's pretty close to our neurotransmitter, so our body's going to say, hey, neurotransmitter. It's going to open the doors, ion channels are going to come in, and communication is going to happen. So it's close enough to a neurotransmitter that your body thinks that something's actually going on. Does that make sense? Did I lose anybody there? Okay, so that is one of the ways that we can see an agonistic effect. So the first one, we have a drug substituting for a neurotransmitter, so it's pretending to be a neurotransmitter. Substituting is your clue word. Or, not and, but or, your drug can come in and it can block the reuptake of the neurotransmitter, leaving the neurotransmitter in the synapse. So what that means, typically, here's our neurotransmitter, it comes, it sits in our receptor site, here's our terminal button. We're going to say this is our reuptake site. Neurotransmitter comes down, sits in our little receptor site. When we're done with it, zoop, it goes back up, right? That's the typical process. What's going to happen with this example number 2? Here's our drug. Our drug is going to come in and it's going to block right here where the neurotransmitter is supposed to go back up into the terminal button. So if it doesn't go back up into the terminal button, where is it left? In the synapse, or specifically in the receptor, which means if it's in the receptor, the ions are coming in, and guess what? Your postsynaptic potential, your communication is still happening. While here, your clue word is substitute. Here, we're blocking the reuptake. Your antagonist is going to block something, but it's not going to be the reuptake. So make sure, keep those 2 separate. If we look at antagonist, is antagonist increasing or decreasing the likelihood of a postsynaptic? Decreasing. So here we go. So what's going to happen? Here we have a new drug. It's similar to our neurotransmitter, but not quite. So if this antagonist comes and sits in this receptor site, it's close enough that it's going to fit in the receptor, but is it enough to actually stimulate? No. It's not. So it's going to come, it's going to sit in the receptor site and block it, so if a neurotransmitter comes, they can't come in, right? because we already have something hanging out there. Kind of like if you take a key and you shove it in a door, but it's not the right key. It fits, but it's not going to let the door unlock, right? Goodness forbid if you break it off. Okay? So same thing, here's your antagonist. It's close enough that it's going to fit in our lock, but not enough to actually open the doors. So it'll come, it'll sit there, but it's not going to open up our ion channels. So is communication going to happen? Mm-mm. Here we go. We're going to play a quick game of agonist or antagonist. We got some drugs here. So you tell me, is this an agonistic effect or an antagonistic effect? Starting with cocaine. Cocaine blocks the reuptake of dopamine and norepinephrine. What's dopamine and norepinephrine? Neurotransmitters. That's what we're looking for. Neurotransmitters. So if cocaine is blocking the reuptake of a neurotransmitter, are we looking at an agonist or an antagonist?
Agonist.
Agonist? Why is it agonist?
Because it's blocking the reuptake of the neurotransmitter.
Because it's blocking the reuptake of the neurotransmitter. So cocaine is an agonist. If you think about it, what happens when somebody is on cocaine? What do they act like?
Crazy. Yeah.
They're all like hyperactive, sometimes overly aggressive. Why? Think of all those ions flowing that maybe shouldn't be flowing. Nicotine. Nicotine is going to substitute for acetylcholine. What's acetylcholine? Neurotransmitter. So substituting for a neurotransmitter. What this means, nicotine is going to come into your body. Your body is going to say, oh, hey, look. As it sits in the receptor site, it's going to think it's a neurotransmitter. Doors are going to open. Ions are going to come in. Is that an agonist or an antagonist? Agonist. Why is it an agonist? It's substituting for a neurotransmitter. How about this one, Prozac? Prozac is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. You've heard that before, right? All those great commercials. What does that mean? It means that this drug is going to come in on certain neurons. It's going to come and block the reuptake of serotonin. Serotonin is what? A neurotransmitter. So if it's blocking the reuptake of a neurotransmitter, what do we have?
Agonist.
Agonist once again. And last, for our agonist-antagonistic game, we have a movie clip. See if you can figure out which drug our actor was struck with. You may have seen this before.
Okay, Quinn is out of the picture. We have no more suspects or clues. But I have instincts, Spike. My instincts tell me we're getting closer. I can feel it. I can feel it like it's right in my neck. Starting to get numb. Three darts is too much.
Okay, agonist or antagonist, what was he shot with the dart? Antagonist, why antagonist?
Blocks the receptors so you're not getting any communication to those spots.
There you go. It blocked the receptor. The drug came in. It sat in that receptor site so that the neurotransmitters couldn't talk and say, move arm. And instead, he had his arm. How he does that, I don't know. That's hilarious. So there you go. That is Psychology 101.